Hello everybody, Ron Wildman here with Middle Georgia Spotlight. We're shining the light on first female chief in the Macon-Bibb Fire Department, Brenda Thomas. I'm not used to the Thomas yet, Brenda. We've known her for years. Her career in the fire department began how long ago?
30 years ago.
Now you're in charge of what?
The Fire Prevention Bureau with Macon-Bibb, or the Community Risk Reduction is what it's called now, so yes.
What kind of reduction?
Community risk reduction.
That means you try to stop fires before they start.
Absolutely, yes sir.
And a lot of inspections?
Yes, lots of inspections. I have 4 or 5 inspectors right now in my building and an educator. But my inspectors are responsible for going out and checking any building that someone from the public will occupy to make sure it's safe for them to be in it. And my educator is one to try to get to them ahead of time by going out to schools, daycare centers, senior citizens, places to do the education part of it.
Let's tell kids how to
stop, drop, and roll, never touch, matches, a lot of stay out of the kitchen.
See, what is that? Stop?
Stop, drop, and roll.
And roll.
If your clothes are on fire.
How many years did you have that job?
8. I did the fire safety education position for 8 years.
And you started what year with the fire department?
October 1990.
Boy, the years go by. We remember those years with
you. Yes, sir.
Then we'd have Fire Prevention Week. We'd
have
a big spectacular. I know out at the mall. You still do those?
The mall not anymore, but we still celebrate it as best we can by going around to different places. We were having our opening ceremony still at our headquarters fire station. But I don't know how different that's going to look this year, but we're still going to let people know about the disasters of fires and the potentials of fire deaths.
What changes did you have to do within the department?
So we still have to go out and do certain inspections. We don't go as regular as we want, but people are still calling in for their business permits, which we can't stop that, so we have to go out and do those limited, but of course without mask or what have you on. Now, like my educator, we won't go into school. He's going to set up a program where they can go through YouTube and get that virtual learning for the fire prevention. So things of that nature.
It's difficult going into private homes these days too, isn't it?
It absolutely is. The guys on the trucks, now they're presented with a whole different kind of issues because we don't know if someone has COVID or whatever, those symptoms or whatever, but so we just have to respond. The bell hits, we get the call, we go there. So we have to be very, very careful. But like those guys in the suppression team on the fire trucks, once they go out there, they'll come back and desanitize everything, you know, wear their mask and the whole deal. So we've even had to close down the fire station, which the fire station is open to the public. But however, with everything going on with COVID, we've had to limit that visitation and all those things now. So we've had some big effects there, but we're still in the business of protecting people, so that's never going to stop.
I've had some good meals at the firehouse.
Still doing that, I have. Doesn't show, but it's
not anymore.
I've
really.
eaten plenty of them. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, what's the big thing in preventing an accidental fire? What's the biggest threat that our fire department has to answer on? Cooking fires or electrical fires or
kitchen fires are the biggest, the most calls that we respond to because people are still putting on their food and leaving it unattended. So that's why we're trying to make sure we do everything to get that education out. But yeah, for the most part, yeah, kitchen fires are the #1 cause that we respond to. And sometimes negligence, but however, the lack of knowledge is where we are really busting our heads on trying to make sure that people get it, because there are some people that actually still don't know they need to have a working smoke alarm and a fire escape plan for their families. And but the kitchen deal with our babies, don't have those kids in the kitchen, and now we've had kids home for a while. I'm hoping parents are able, when we do this virtual, parents are able to look at that and be able to teach their kids, because these babies shouldn't be in that kitchen without an adult. They think the microwave is safe, but it's really not for for a young child.
Tell me about that, microwave.
Microwaves are just
I'm not
dangerous.
afraid of the microwave. Maybe I should be.
No, sir. Well, not if you know what you're doing, but we're talking about small children.
Well, I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, since you don't, let's tell you a little bit about it too. But especially our small babies, something as simple as go in there and put your Pop-Tart on and warm it up. They may not know they can't put that Pop-Tart in that microwave with that wrapping, because that's actually aluminum.
Foil. Yes,
sir. So maybe they not know that, or maybe they'll take it off, but they may put it in there and put it on too much time, and then they can be burned in their mouths by eating that. So different things like that. But definitely the stove, they should never be operating the stoves at any time, at least without adult supervision.
I had moved to my last house, and I never was around a gas stove, but I have to have a gas stove, and it's a learning experience for me. But the intensity of that flame is something else on this
It
building.
is. So yeah, and if you're talking about small children, that's even a bigger threat for those babies.
Before it gets away from us, are we still putting smoke detectors out?
We are. We're still installing smoke alarms free of charge. And you can call us by dialing 478-751-9180. That's 478-751-9180 if you're in your homes without a working smoke alarm. Now, any apartment complexes and people that own properties, they're responsible for it. But one else in our residents that own their homes, we'll come out and still install those smoke alarms.
And you make arrangements that you come out safely.
Yes, sir. We're not coming, so they won't frighten them away. We won't come lights and siren. Once you dial the number, the 751-9180, the young lady on the line, our administrator, she'll get all your information. We'll even ask you what's a good time for you. But we're not coming lights and siren. We're going to come when it's good for us to come, when it's convenient for you, rather. It's when we'll come up.
Your people will be masks? And
most definitely. Yes, sir. We're going to still come
and
with
vice
masks.
versa, you hope they are that
We
way
hope
too.
they are, but we're definitely going to be masked when we show up to your homes.
And your people install these?
We do. We come in and we install them. We come in and take a look at the area, you know, because depending on the size of your home, you may require 2, because the most we will install is 2 of those free of charge, because we get those monies through a grant. So that's why we can't go out and install those at an apartment complex who they're responsible for that. So in our
maintenance
community
people
home,
would do it.
Yes, sir. So yeah, we do install those.
Well, I know they work because every time I get in that kitchen every once in a while and something burns up, it'll go off. But it's good to know it's there if I need it, because I know that piercing sound will wake me up for sure when nothing else will.
It will.
You know, I used to wonder, covering the news over the years, the fires were started by coffee pots left on. They wouldn't have an automatic stop off. And I didn't realize that until one night over a weekend I left one on, and that coffee was down to here before I caught it, and I could see where it eventually would start a fire. And also smoking late at night.
Yes, sir.
I found out, I don't smoke, but I find out if I have a cup of coffee or something in my hand, I might wake up an hour later and it's still there.
Absolutely.
And if that was a cigarette, that causes a lot of fires.
So you should not
and
ever
death.
Smoke cigarettes when you're taking medications or you're exhausted, because you'll fall asleep. Like you said, you woke up later and didn't realize you even had fallen asleep. So that's very dangerous. Not to smoke in your bed or when you're taking your medications or when you're just exhausted, because that's that potential. And we've had it to happen. It does happen.
Seems like years ago we had a lot of larger fires than we're having these days. I'm talking about raging fires downtown in those old buildings. Now that's part of your job to head those off, isn't it?
It is. It is. Well, that not just downtown, but any buildings, but for the bigger structures, yeah. That's why my inspectors go out. We have to make sure that they have the proper fire protection in those buildings to start with, like whether it needs to be sprinkled or have the pool stations and all the fire protection alerts for those people. So yes.
And the newer buildings, are they building them where they can withstand a fire? I'm talking about the sprinkler systems.
Yeah, depending on what that particular property is, it's required to have certain, say something over 12,000 square feet. It's going to have it's going to be sprinkled automatically because of the size of it, and also depends on what it's used for. An assembly is like major, like assemblies, hospitals, places where a lot of people gather. Those will most definitely more than like always be sprinkled, because we're talking about people that are in there. But like say the Coliseum, we got to have buildings like that protected, because we may have up to 9,000, 10,000 people in that building at one time. So any structure that's going to have a large number of people in there, we definitely have to make sure that those buildings have the right protections, like I said, the hospitals as well as the schools, all those type facilities, assemblies, theaters, auditoriums, things like that. Yeah, we definitely have to make sure that they have the right fire protection in those structures.
Even though the big, and then they're established, do you still inspect them from time to time, or do you, how's that work?
So the assemblies have to be, they have to be inspected twice a year, just because of what they are. The daycares, the schools, twice a year automatically. Say like a Walmart, once a year. But we're actually going there twice a year because they have a hood system in their restaurant part of it. But mostly the people, again, any building that has that requires a large number of people that's going to be in there twice a year, because you definitely got to make sure that those buildings are going to stay up. They have to stay up on their inspection stuff at all times.
You're talking about the hood over the stove.
Well, the ones that are in the restaurants, that hood suppression.
Yeah, the hood,
yes,
yeah.
Sir,
And at home, we have those over our
Yeah, we do.
ranges. Now, if I have a grease fire, I've seen them rise up. The best way to do that is to smother that fire?
If you can, smother it. And if this was a plan here, flames were coming up, don't do that. You start it where however high those flames are, you take that lid and as you come down, that fire's going to smoke because you took the oxygen out of it.
Do it that way, slowly.
But don't, because you don't want to give it air. So, because oxygen is a problem for fire for us, for anyone. But if there's a pot of pan, flames are coming up, start at the top of where those flames, and as you come down, you'll see it coming down. Because you've taken the oxygen out, boom, it's smothered out. And you got to remember to turn the stove off, though. A lot of people don't realize that.
That's right.
You got to remember to turn the stove. If you don't move it off that eye, you got to remember to turn the stove off.
And you can do that while those flames are there
yes,
real
sir.
quick. Yeah.
Or baking soda
Yeah.
or salt, but definitely not water. We also have people that think it's okay if from here to you, from the stove to the sink, it's still not safe from that distance to pick it up to try to move it. Very dangerous because one of those flames may actually, because you're moving it, giving it air, and if they lick down and touch that part of your body, you're going to drop those flames. Well, now we have another situation because now we got flames around you and you're inside a kitchen area, maybe a small area. But yes, you should never pick up a pan, a pot of fire, and ever move it because the biggest part is oxygen. Fire loves it, loves it. I call it Cookie Monster style. That's how much fire loves oxygen. So it's important not to give a fire any oxygen.
You know, a frying pan fire is spectacular, though, to look into your kitchen and see that. It takes a little bravery to do that,
it does.
but it can be safely done.
With the proper training, I would advise, but if you don't have the training, my best advice is to get out there and dial 911 and get professionals there that are able to handle that and do it the right way.
But if you can turn that dial down, turn it down,
turn
get
the
that heat
stove
source
off.
away, at least that.
All of that, yeah.
And
even that, if you don't want to fight that, just turn it off.
And that'll,
because it's gonna, yeah.
It'll burn itself out.
It'll go out.
Well, that's great
yes,
news.
It'll
It will help me too.
Yes,
I wasn't thinking about that part of it.
Most people they'll do the first part, they forget that. Because we've had because they'll go, well, I put it out, but they forgot to turn it off. So that pan on that pot is still on there with that heat attached to it. So it's going to smoke up more. If this is going to smoke up, it's still going to cause a problem one way or the other.
Well, you've been in the public's eye one way or another for now a long time. Started over at Northeast High School. You were on the track team.
Track and
How
basketball.
did that happen?
Oh my goodness! Now when I was in school, junior high was 8th and 9th grade at Applin. I went to Applin A, and Coach Copeland's wife was the track coach. We actually started in 8th grade because I never thought I would have run track. So I loved basketball. So we always went out for basketball. But when it came to track, we were just really cutting it. Let's go out for track. Yeah, as a joke. But we went out, did well. But again, Coach Copeland's wife was the coach over there. So I went and tried out and ran it. He would come to see us because the high school, what we call on the hill, Northeast, he would come down to check us out, I guess, for his upcoming talent or whatever. Yeah. And he saw me, he was like, well, you're going to run for me. I'm going, no, I don't want to run, mister. I went home crying to my mom, telling her I don't want to run track. But as it turned out, 9th grade year, I was on the varsity team, so Mr. Copeland would come down to get myself and 3 others for the basketball team. And he kept saying, but you couldn't play basketball if you didn't run cross country and track for Mr. Alvin Copeland. So that's how he got me. Because you couldn't, when you, at that time in the 79, 80s, you had to run track and run cross country and track to play on Alvin Copeland's basketball team. And I love basketball, so I'm like, okay. And so I did run and did well enough, so he was like, oh, you're gonna run. You're running. That endurance he gave you, didn't it? Yeah, because we were like one of the best, if not the best, fast break team at that time, track, because we were so conditioned. We were a running team. We were a fast break team. If we get a rebound, we knew we had to go because we were built for that because we had run cross country. That's it. And run Wood Valley Hills, so we were conditioned for it. Not all teams did that, did they? That's why he's a legend. That's exactly. That's why we have state championships in track and basketball. So you weren't just running; you were excelling in it. I did. Like I said, I love basketball, that track, but I ran it and I did well with it. So I ran the 100 meter. It was a dash back then, 100 yard dash, 220 yard dash. I ran on the 4x100 meter yard relay and the 440 relay, and I did the long jump. So I did all of those. So, like I said, I did pretty well and never thought about school, so to speak, or on the next level. But I started getting these letters and stuff in the mail, so that was a little scary for me For me, coming from a single parent home, my mom can't afford for me to go to college, so it just wasn't a thought. But then I started getting these letters and stuff, and then coach started talking to me, and I'm going, what? There's a possibility I can go to school. So letters kept coming in for to go to visit these schools and stuff. So, but again, it was scary, so I was like, okay. But the more I ran, the better I did, the more letters I got.
Do you think young ladies at that age are scared off of a future, getting those letters and having to move away from home when they weren't planning to move away from home? It's kind of a frightening thing, isn't it?
At that time for me in the early 80s was frightening. It's more frightening now.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that even so because my son, he was right around, an hour and 45 minutes away in college in Phoenix, Alabama, but he struggled. I mean, and then I was learning from other parents that their kids was not wanting to go away, and maybe we were part of that problem that they didn't want to get away from home, but I think it is frightening, the fact that I've been here around my family all these years of my life, and now you're telling me to go off. And I actually based my going to college off of if my mom can't drive to see me, or I didn't want to be too far from home. I knew those Kentucky and California and some of those long distance letters, I never even opened them because I'm like, I can't go there, I can't go that far away from home. My mom can't drive there, or what about my family? Because I was used to being around home, so it was slightly frightening. So. And even now for them now, because we're unfortunately as parents kept them a little close than we should have. Whereas when I came through, you better go and do what you need to do. And that's our parents. We knew what we need to do. Your older sisters and brothers were keeping you at home, and parents were working, and you did what you had to do. Your parents, they laid that finger down. You knew it was going to move on. But we kept our kids a little closer, so we kind of enabled them to a certain degree. So yeah, and they're terrified. I'm learning that from parents. That I talk to my friends that our babies are terrified to go off now. They are.
You eventually settled on Florida State?
Florida State University, go Noles.
Down in Tallahassee.
Yes, sir.
And just across the state line.
Yes, sir.
What was it like going down there?
Tallahassee reminded me a lot of Macon, actually, you know. Actually, and I always have to say this because I actually had told Coach Landers I was coming there, and for whatever reason, I still don't know the day, I changed my mind at the last minute to go to Florida State University. But Florida State actually was more like, it made me feel like Macon a lot.
You were headed where? You were going
to University of Georgia.
Oh, you were? Andy Landers, is that who we talking about?
I did, yes, I love Coach Landers. But I told him, yes, Coach, I'm coming, but I don't even know to this day, for whatever reason, I changed my mind. And when he called, and he was like, yeah, it was not a good conversation, but I still love him today. And every time he see me, when he got inducted into the Georgia Sports Hall of Fame, in an autograph book on there, he put, should have been a dog. But anyway, down at Tallahassee, it felt a little bit like Macon to me, home, because I don't like big places, you know, I'm just low-key kind of person, so it felt kind of more like home now. And speaking of being frightened, I called home every day till my mom had to say, you know what, because the bill, I'm just running up a bill, calling home.
Those were expensive calls in those days.
They were, and I had to, okay, yes, ma'am. But I cried because I'm like, I can't talk to my mom every day because I've been talking to her every day for as long as I can remember, but she finally she was trying to let me do it, but she couldn't afford it. So I had to finally suck it up, go on and handle some business.
So what happened at Florida State with you?
Oh, wow, because I did the track and the basketball. I started out with the basketball, and of course I ran track. And before I left here, my senior year, and I'll never forget, they had a Brenda Clyde Day up at Northeast, and on the back of that program it read 1984 Olympics. That was scary, because for me, I just didn't think that far ahead in my future. And I can go back to Fort Hawkins Elementary School, and I can't remember Liz's name, but during our graduation ceremony, during her speech, she said, oh yeah, there's Brenda Clyde. And part of her speech, she was like, she's gonna be famous one day, and oh, there's Brenda in the airport, just addressing that to me. So on the back of that program saying the Olympics, I'm going, wow, because everybody was like, girl, you can run, we know you're gonna be in the Olympics. So all the family and people at home was like cheering for me, Olympics, because they were like, oh, she's gonna go. I remember going to the Junior Nationals, and again, the village helped raise me, because going to the Junior National, they raised money, the Lucases, the Maz, all those people at the time, the Hearts that raised the money funds for me to go, the Shoemakers to go off to travel, because they raised enough funds for myself, the coach, and my mom to travel to Nebraska for me to go to the Junior Nationals.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So I still didn't think about it, because again, track just was not a favorite. However, I did know for whatever reasons, like I said, when I changed my mind about going to the University of Georgia, I knew track was going to take me further than basketball. Because at the time we didn't have a women's league for one. And I said, I'm not going overseas to play ball, although I loved it. But I knew track would do better for me. And Florida State at the time did have a better track program at that time. But again, the Olympics and all that, people were saying it, and I saw in the back of that program, they was all excited about me sometime trying out. In my head, okay. Well, as it turned out, I got down there, ran well. I got to try out in '84 in Los Angeles, and I tried out in the 400-meter dash, the 200 meters, and the 100-meter dash. I got to, I think, the quarterfinals in both the 100 and the 400 meters. And my last opportunity, which was that 200-meter dash, which I was a better runner in that. We talking about, not at the time, but later on, FloJo, the Valerie Briscoe Hooks, the Chandra Cheeseburgers, the Alice Browns, the Jeanette Bowles, the Evelyn Ashford. Those were the people I was competing against. But that was my last opportunity to get, and they take the top 3 that actually compete. So here I am. This is my last chance, and it was on TV because my people got to see me. But in my head, okay, I've got to do this because the hometown people, they're depending on me. They're depending on me. I don't think I was in my best shape that I should have been, but I was in shape well enough to have gotten to that because there were hundreds of people trying out for those 8 spots for that final race. Hundreds of people, so I was a part of that race. So there the gun goes off, and I'm in there, and I can see Florence Griffith Joyner and Valerie. I can see them clear as day. And I'm in there, I'm like, I'm third. But my teammate from Florida State, Randy Gibbons, was in that race. Well, Randy is the one person at Florida State that beat me all the time. But I was always leading her until the end of the race because Randy had such an awful start. But at the point that she normally does beat me when we were competing at Florida State, she was not there. And I would start looking for her because she's supposed to be done caught me by now. But in the process of me looking for her and not concentrating, she got me at the tape. So I wound up 4th. Got to celebrate with them as an alternate, got to travel, and all that was awesome. But it was very, very, very disappointing. I came home and I pouted for about, I think my mom let me pout for about 3 weeks. She finally came there, gave me that go-to, and told me to get up out of there and quit pouting. But it was very disappointing because I felt I had let down my hometown.
I was going to ask you, were you afraid to disappoint folks?
I was. I absolutely was. It was like I said, it was scary. And I never have sat down and had this conversation and told anyone that, not just, about how, but it was a scary time for me because I didn't want to disappoint.
You were what age then?
21 or 2.
Just a child.
Mm-hmm.
You were going up against some machines, weren't you? I think you learned something by watching these other people. It had to, because they were totally dedicated to what they were doing, and you were just doing it.
Yeah, I'm going to do this for the hometown because everybody's depending on me, that whole thing. Because again, whatever it was about track, I've never liked track, and I did so well in it, which is really crazy. But like I said, I had enough sense to know, like I said, that I do better in it. So, because I got to travel all over the world free of charge. I got to compete for the United States of America.
Little East Macon girl.
Little old East Macon girl from over in Davis home. So it was an awesome experience. I didn't do as great as I think I should have. I think had I had a better love for it, I should have done better. I should have stuck with it, but I didn't. I still did well in life. That's the kicker that really amazes me, that I still did well.
When the pouting ended, what started up again? After the tryouts.
Well, once that, I just got back to the same old brand, but I never had any intentions of even going back to try it again. That's why I say I should have stuck with it. I still didn't. I was done,
Were you on the basketball team at
Florida State? I was.
How did that go for you?
Oh, I love basketball. I had a great time playing basketball. My freshman year, we actually made it to the first time we ever made it to for the round of the NCAA. So that was awesome. Yeah, I just love basketball so much. But yeah, we did well. I played with some great players. So yeah, I liked the basketball. But and when I get to go out and speak to children about, because people ask me to come because of what I did, and I like to talk to them about all the great things that happened. Get to show them my 5 gold medals and tell them all this wonderful stuff about the travels that I was able to do for free of charge. But in the end, and I say this at the end on purpose, I asked them, did I ever mention to y'all in my speech that I was a college flunk out? And everybody goes, but I say that at the end on purpose, but do that because these children think that everything's just smooth sailing. It's not the case all the time. Now, I was at fault with me because I knew I went to school. I didn't go to school to run track and play ball. I went to college to become a college graduate. But I got down there. I wasn't a party. I stuck in my room, but I didn't focus on my lesson like I should have. So got put out of that school. Had to go to Tallahassee Community College. Went there, and the most amazing thing, and I still to this day, is why I love Florida State University, because the hair raises. Before I can get out of there good, because I went and got my grades back up, they literally offered me both of those scholarships back, because I had a track and a basketball scholarship. Now, when I went to school, you signed on the dotted line one time. I had, thanks to Coach Coleman, I had 5 years of college guaranteed, just from signing on the line, dotted line. However, now that's not the case, because you had the kids. Now we got to do a better job at getting them prepared for the next level, because if the coaches don't train them, that you're not going to college and telling these people what to do, how are you going to run things? So they got so bad at going out there and not behaving well. Well, now they can put you off their team at any time. They do it year by year now, where when I signed, 5 years guaranteed, and thank God for it, because they gave them a scholarship back. I didn't run track, I just finished out with basketball.
We're almost done, if you can believe this.
Mm-hmm.
What sparked the job at the fire department?
My degree was in, I went to school to become a teacher, got my degree to do that, but I wound up in Juliet, Georgia at an outdoor therapeutic girls home. That camp closed down, that job closed down, and I was without a job, and a friend of mine from the Florida, on the department, he said, why don't you try the fire department? I'm like, nope, because I was one of the kids terrified of fire trucks. However, I did try out, but I had no intentions of staying. October 8, 1990, here today, was this August 26th, almost 31 years later. Because when I did get on there, I realized all the stuff that we did with helping people. I was like, oh, this is great, I get to help people. Oh, we do this. So I'm that person, I love to do helping. And when I found out at the fire department, we got the opportunity to do, because I always knew I was going to come back home. I always knew that, because of Miss Elaine Lucas and those group of people, because again, those people that got together and raised that funds for me, and I thought, oh, I want to do that when I grow up. And I always knew I was going to come back home to be a part of my community, not somebody else's, because they did it for me. So I always knew that. So that's how I wound up there and wound up staying, because once I found out that the fire department, that what we do is for the community we help, that was right up my alley. So here I am again, almost 31 years later.
First female chief, even though it's job description, director.
Fire prevention director.
And we know there's one big chief, don't we?
Only one. Yes, that's Marvin Riggins.
But you're
the
chief
fire
too.
Chief. But the rank, the position is fire prevention director. However, the rank is the chief, because we have other like battalion chief, but the rank is chief. But I'm the fire prevention director is what my title is.
Brenda Thomas. Thank you. You're one of my favorite people.
you know we go a long ways back. Yes, sir. You have always been, and thank you so much for being that. Because you were actually one of those inspirations back when I was doing all that. Because you were always very kind, and you always interviewed me, and you talked to me and had great things to say and great motivation. So thank you so much.
And thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
All right. And thank you, folks. I'm Ron Wildman, WMUB TV.